A lot of groundbreaking decisions here. Let's get more legal analysis. Jeffrey Rosen is a professor at George Washington University's Law School. He's also president and CEO at the National Constitution Center and joins us now from Aspen, Colorado. Jeffrey, welcome to the program. I want to get to the Chevron case, which has huge implications, and I know maybe doesn't get the glamorous headline attention that the January 6 rioters case has gotten, obviously the presidential immunity case as well. But let me ask you your response to that the court essentially overturning 40 years of precedent, really deferring to the federal government here and agencies, instead giving more deference to the courts itself. Chevron is one of the most cited in American law. There have been 70 Supreme Court decisions relying on Chevron. What are the implications here?
The implications are tremendous. It's the most important case involving the boundaries of the administrative state in the past 50 years. And this will transform the way that regulations are made. Under Chevron, judges basically left it up to executive officials to make regulations. Now they're going to have to decide on their own, case by case, whether a particular regulation is consistent with congressional law or not. Since the law is often vague, this means that a lot more regulations will be struck down. And from regulating health and the environment to the Securities and Exchange Commission, all sorts of regulations will be called into question. Striking down the administrative state was a central goal of the Reagan Revolution starting in the 1980s. And in some ways, as much as Roe v. Wade's overturning was a goal of the current conservative justices, this was the second big prong of the hope that the administrative state would be cabined in. And now with the overturning of Chevron, that's going to happen. The effects of this decision couldn't be understated, and it's going to resonate for decades to come.
Yeah, and this is, again, to note, overturning 40 years of precedent here. And this was a decision that came down along ideological lines here. I'd like to read for you what Justice Elena Kagan wrote in dissent. She was joined by two other liberals in saying that the overturning of the Chevron precedent was a rule of judicial humility giving way to a rule of judicial hubris. In one fell swoop, the majority today gives itself executive power over every open issue, no matter how expertise-driven or policy-laden, involving the meaning of regulatory law. As if it did not need and have enough on its plate, the majority turns itself into the country's administrative czar. Really not mincing words here. Do you agree with her interpretation of this decision?
It's really striking. She made a similar point when the court struck down an environmental protection regulation. She said, now it's up to these 9 justices to decide climate change. That's scary, was a word that she used, because she basically says, we judges don't have any special expertise in these scientific and policy matters. That's exactly why we elect executive officials. And it's incredibly hubristic for judges to think that they know the right answer. Interestingly, Justice Scalia, the conservative justice, used to favor deference and humility, and he was one of Chevron's biggest champions. But as Justice Gorsuch noted in his long concurring opinion, Justice Scalia shifted, and the entire conservative project moved from one of judicial deference and humility and letting other officials make decisions to one where judges presume to make them themselves. And the result of that is to hugely empower the Supreme Court and to make them the last word on every single regulation that gets passed. It seems, as Justice Kagan said, the opposite of what conservatives promised when they said that policy should be made in the political arena rather than in the courts.
Quickly, can I just ask you, does this have implications related to the mifepristone case that in past had deferred to the FDA, which had ruled that this abortion drug that had been deemed safe by the FDA for decades was legal to use, and the deference given to the FDA? Is this where this decision would apply in cases like that too?
It's a great question. In the mifepristone case in particular, no, because Chevron had not been applied in that case, and it'll be resolved on different grounds. But cases like it and future efforts to regulate abortion or anything else will be dramatically affected by this case, only in the sense that this continues a trend that the conservatives had already begun. It's not like this is going to change things overnight, but it'll definitively invite judges to second-guess regulations like mifepristone and everything else.
Yeah, just giving a sense of the broad ramifications here. And last question about this decision, really siding with the January 6th rioter on the issue of the obstruction charge. Your reaction?
Well, as you were beginning to discuss, it's hugely important. Will this affect the Trump prosecution by Jack Smith? There's two charges, both conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction. And Trump's lawyers will now argue, since he didn't destroy or alter documents, those two charges at the core of his January 6th indictment should be thrown out. Jack Smith counters, well, by encouraging the creation of new election certificates, he was essentially altering documents. But this might well go up to the Supreme Court next year. It can't be heard immediately. And once again, you could well have the conservative justices saying, no, you need to destroy documents, not create them. And therefore, it's possible that this means that at least two of the four charges at the heart of the Jack Smith indictment will be thrown out, even if the judges find that he's not immune. So you can see what an incredibly uphill battle Jack Smith has in charging Trump in January 6 cases after the decision this morning.
Yeah, we've already heard from Attorney General Merrick Garland expressing his frustration, disappointment with this decision. Jeffrey Rosen, always good to see you. Thank you so much. Let's bring in our political panel.